Okay, we're at the communications tower now, and just a quick 360. You see the familiar landmarks that I just showed you a moment ago. There's Potosi Mountain. We didn't see that earlier. Direction of the trailhead below. Mountain Springs area. And curiously, there's that bluff I refer to as Landmark Bluff. That's at the entrance of Level Canyon. And no matter where you are on the Rainbow Mountains, Upper Crest Ridgeline, that bluff will guide you to Level Canyon. It'll also guide you to, you can triangulate your position according to that bluff and get back here, or you can watch for the communication tower when you're up on the Upper Crest Ridgeline above. So let's just take a quick look at where that trail begins at the backside of the communication tower. And you just go through this little gate, and you go around either the right or the left side, and it's not a problem. It's not an area that is off limits. So here we are. Here's the base of the communications tower. And as soon as we get to this little rise ahead, we're going to look down and find the beginning of the Upper Crest Ridgeline access trail. And the marker here is where this little maintenance road is blocked off by some boulders. You just go past the boulders and then continue up the maintenance road, which then takes you along to the Upper Crest Ridgeline. So, and by the way, for South Peak and Hollow Rock Peak, this is your target, this hill. We'll look at that in a moment when we get up there. Okay, and as I mentioned, yeah, we're behind the communications tower. There's the gate we just passed through. There's the direction of Mountain Springs. And let's continue on. Okay, you'll recognize the hill that we were looking at on the Upper Crest Ridgeline. And here we are on the little maintenance road with a better look at where this road / trail is going to connect with the Upper Crest Ridgeline. And there you see, there it goes, ascending, connecting, and then you take a right. You head for the top of that hill. Okay, right now we're on that high point that was to the right of the trail connection with the Upper Crest Ridgeline I showed you a moment ago. And we're looking down at that trail connection now. You'll need to know where this is on the way back. But if you have trouble finding it, you can always know that, yeah, there's the trail. So you can see the trail. So you don't head up north on the Upper Crest Ridgeline when you're trying to get back to the Mountain Spring trailhead. But here is an even better marker. Let's see if I can nail this. Yes, the communications tower right down there. And then just for some perspective where we are, this is a very good vantage point, one of the best on the whole route. There you see Potosi Mountain. And then down below is the town of Mountain Springs. And of course the highway to Pahrump. And down in this direction is the trailhead where we started. So it's always good to know, to be able to pick out as many landmarks as you can, and you'll have a hard time getting lost. Okay, here is, speaking of landmarks, here's Landmark Bluff. The bluff I call Landmark Bluff at the entrance of Level Canyon. Great landmark. And then moving around, here's Griffith Peak. And Charleston Peak is where you see the snow. And then I believe this is part of Mummy Mountain. And then again, looking north on the Upper Crest Ridgeline, and we come around here and look at some of the peaks that are going to be your main reference points. Here's Windy Peak. Las Vegas Valley in the background. And I believe Blue Diamond Hill. Maybe not. No, not Blue Diamond Hill. Forget that. But this I know, Hollow Rock Peak. And then to the right of Hollow Rock Peak, you can see the very tip of South Peak, the southernmost peak in the Rainbow Mountains. And then there's this little peak just on this side of the highway. I call it south of South Peak because that's exactly what it is. I don't think it has a name. But I hear that's an awesome place to climb. So there you have it. There's our perspective. And now we're heading, what we're going to do is head down toward Hollow Rock Peak as if we were going to summit Hollow Rock Peak. We're going to head toward it, and then there's going to be what I call the South Peak connector. And it's a little dip, little saddle that gets you over to South Peak. At least that's what it looked like on the topographical map. But we're going to see today what things actually look like. Okay, it's time to check in again. We are heading now toward Hollow Rock Peak. And that ridge leading to Hollow Rock Peak, I'm just going to call Hollow Rock Ridge. About halfway between the peak and the beginning of that ridge is the South Peak crossover. So what we're going to do is descend now, reascend, and then take a left along Hollow Rock Ridge. And just to give you a quick look around, beautiful day, nice breeze. There's Potosi Mountain, by the way. And then not a whole lot to see in this direction. This is just the trail that led down from the Upper Crest Ridgeline toward Hollow Rock Peak. So actually you're going as if you're going to ascend Hollow Rock Peak, and then about halfway to the peak you're going to find that crossover to South Peak. Okay, just a quick note. I came down this trail you're looking at. Notice the color. This is mainly limestone. And notice we are right at the demarcation line. Notice the color in this direction. It becomes more reddish. It's the sandstone. And it'll get even more red, but the point is that that changing point is right here. And this is the famous Keystone Thrust fault line between the limestone and the sandstone. And then you see more sandstone ahead. Great shot of Windy Peak. And yeah, look at the fault line where it turns from red to gray. That very distinctive fault line continues all along the Rainbow Mountains. To the left or west, the higher points are the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline. To the right or east is the sandstone, which are the sandstone peaks of the Rainbow Mountains. And there below in the haze is the Las Vegas Valley. And continuing up now, once we reach this rise ahead, we're going to see both Hollow Rock Peak and South Peak. And curiously, right here at this point, at that demarcation line, I just noticed a little trail that splits off to the left. And it heads downward into the canyon between Windy Peak and Hollow Rock Peak. And I think this is a lower access point to get to where we're standing right now, because you look down below, notice a road intersection. There's some roads and there's an intersection with the highway. Let's take a look at that. And that intersection you just saw with the highway is actually the late night trailhead. And so you can see the road system below and the late night trailhead, and you can then determine how you might get from that trailhead up to where we're standing right here. Hollow Rock Peak on the right, Windy Peak on the left. Okay, now we're on the sandstone and we're on Hollow Rock Peak Ridgeline that I pointed out a little earlier. To the left is Hollow Rock Peak. To the right is South Peak. There you have it. And notice this spot right down here. This is what I call the South Peak crossover. So you can see that, yeah, you're not going to take the Upper Crest Ridgeline to South Peak the way we did to Hollow Rock Peak here. You basically have to almost get to Hollow Rock Peak. In fact, I believe that's the rock ahead. The hollow rock of Hollow Rock Peak, the one on the right. That's the summit. But you have to head toward Hollow Rock Peak and then head for this crossover area. And you look carefully, you'll see there's a little saddle down there. Yeah, it's a descent and reascent, but it's really the only way to get to South Peak from above. Okay, we're just below the ridgeline summit, Hollow Rock Peak Ridgeline, and we're on the south side. And there, by the way, is the peak that I've referred to as south of South Peak, which would be the very last peak in the Rainbow Mountains. But now we're looking at potential crossover point. And I know that we need to be down in this saddle. The question is how to get there the best way. And it looks like I could descend right here. There was a place a little before, but it's all pretty much the same. I could descend here, get over to this ridge in the foreground, and then look around and see where that saddle is. Because we need to be down in the saddle, then we ascend to South Peak. Well, I can see the saddle immediately below. And we've got a few sandstone ledges to descend. Not too horribly difficult to get down to that saddle. Once we get down to the saddle, the ascent to South Peak looks fairly uncomplicated. We don't know for sure. But this right here, this saddle below us, would be what I call the South Peak crossover point between Hollow Rock Peak, where I'm standing, or at least the ridge, and South Peak. And then we look around, there's Potosi Mountain. And here's something interesting. Where did I begin to descend? Right from this area up above. And there you can see my trekking poles. Now, maybe I jumped the gun a little bit. I could have come down a little later. Maybe on the way back, I'll go up this gully here. It looks a little more gradual. So yeah, maybe I jumped the gun a little bit, but yeah, if I go up this gully, then the challenge will be to find my trekking poles. Yes, there they are in plain sight, but sort of invisible. Okay, so let's continue down to the saddle, not too far below us here. And then see if we can begin ascending toward South Peak. Well, guess where we are? We are on the saddle now. Look around us. We've descended to the saddle successfully. And now we're looking at an ascent up to the South Peak Ridgeline. Some interesting things ahead here. There's Potassi Canyon Road. Or Potassi Canyon Road. And over this way, here you can see a portion of the highway. Then looking up in this direction is Hollow Rock Ridgeline that we just descended. Notice there is a pointed boulder or ledge on the right. Between that pointed ledge, just to the left of that point, there's a gully. We got to remember where that gully is, because that is the way back to the Hollow Rock Ridgeline. So we'll stand on this saddle and look toward those reference points. There's the highway below. And then back to the South Peak Ridgeline. All we need to do is figure out how to ascend, weaving around between the brush and the boulders ahead. And I'm sure there's a best way. I don't know if I can find that, so who knows what we're going to experience. But the goal is to get up to the South Peak Ridgeline, and then we should see a pretty clear route to South Peak. Quick note that as we ascend this little approach ridge from the saddle below, there are actually some cairns. So we're on some kind of route. And this little approach ridge from the saddle, we took the right side, left side as you're heading up, right when we're heading down. And then you can see that pointy rock up there on the right, and the gully just to the left of that. That gully is our ticket back. And then guess what? Let's see if I can zoom in. Guess what? My trekking poles are right there. You see, right in the center. So that's a target on the way back. Larger view. Down to the saddle and then up to the ridgeline, which is just above us. Another cairn right above us. Okay, here we are, definitely on South Peak Ridgeline. And I think according to the cairns, I should be down below. Not exactly sure how to get there at this point. And I'm looking at some drop-offs on every side. I may try this south side of the ridge, see if I can wind around here. I certainly can head down this little vertical wall. Here we are looking at Hollow Rock Ridgeline, and then South Peak Ridgeline here. And from a rare perspective, here's Hollow Rock Peak. And you can find that on LasVegasAreaTrails.com. When I was there, I wasn't sure I was at the summit, but yes, that rock was indeed the summit of Hollow Rock Peak. So that page on LasVegasAreaTrails.com with the route is correct. So I'm going to explore around a little more on this ridge and maybe see what the most direct route is to continue along the ridge. This is the direction I came from. And this is the direction I'd like to go. We'll see if I find a way through. If not, I'll return because I know how to get to this point now. Make it a lot more rapidly and have more time to play around. And by the way, over there in Level Canyon is Landmark Bluff. Always a great landmark. That's at the entrance of Level Canyon. So look up the pages of Level Canyon, look up Landmark Bluff. We climbed around on it, and I've got images of Landmark Bluff from a lot of different perspectives, all the way up to Griffith Peak. Okay, here's a cool view down to the connector saddle, the South Peak connector, and then up to my trekking poles way up on the Hollow Rock Ridge. So here we go. And there they were in the center of the screen if you looked very carefully. I'll zoom in again. It's like a Where's Waldo? Where are the trekking poles? I lose more equipment that way. Okay, so down to the saddle, back up to the trekking poles, and then over along take a left on the Hollow Rock Peak Ridge, and then over to the Rainbow Mountains Upper Crest Ridgeline and back down to the Mountain Springs Trailhead. And before we head back to Hollow Rock Peak Ridge, some cool things that just appeared. Here is south of South Peak. There's the highway below and Potosi Canyon Road. And you can see on LasVegasAreaTrails.com where I went up that road and then up the west side of Potosi Mountain West, or the Western Cliffs. There's the highway heading over the hump and toward Pahrump. And then in the distance, there is Landmark Bluff, the entrance of Lovell Canyon. And you can see between south of South Peak on the left, and we're on South Peak now, and then Hollow Rock Peak on the right, you can see a series of trails. And these trails / roads come up from the Late Night Trailhead. They connect to the Late Night Trailhead. And that would be an alternate way to descend from South Peak and head up toward the Mountain Springs Trailhead area, which is right up in that area. And you could actually make that trek from the Late Night Trailhead all the way up to Mountain Springs. And then you can see another trail. Nicer as a trail than a road, than the road I just showed you. But there it is, going along the northern edge of what I'm calling south of South Peak. And then it also continues up toward Mountain Spring. So it's a couple cool hikes that you could do. And then, of course, here we go, back up to the Hollow Rock Ridgeline. And then you can see along the ridgeline all the way to Hollow Rock Peak, which is that dark rock on the right. So there you have it. And now let's head back up to Hollow Rock Ridgeline, down to the saddle and up to the ridgeline.